I was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing out my teacup, when my daughter-in-law called. Her name, Claire, flashed across the screen. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked up. "Hi, Claire," I said. No answer. At first, I thought maybe she'd pocket-dialed me. I was just about to hang up when I heard her voice, muffled but clear enough. "Oh, don't worry about her," she said, laughing. "She's way too old to notice what's really going on." My body froze. Then I heard my son, Michael, in the background. His tone was low but amused. "She hasn't said anything, right? I told you, she's clueless." Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. I didn't breathe. I didn't say a word. My hand tightened around the phone, and I stayed silent, listening. Once we finalized the documents, "It's done," Claire continued. "I've already talked to the realtor. It's gonna sell fast in this market. She won't even know it's gone until the sign goes up." They were talking about my house. The phone stayed pressed to my ear as Claire laughed again. Sharp, mean, like I was a joke to her. I waited until the moment she said, "Anyway, I'll swing by later and act sweet. Just keep pretending like everything's normal." And then I quietly ended the call. My hands were trembling, but I didn't drop the phone. I placed it on the counter and stood there, feeling my chest tighten. I'm 68. I may not move as fast as I used to, and I've got more prescriptions in my cabinet than I'd like. But I'm not stupid. I'm not deaf, and I'm certainly not blind. They thought I wouldn't notice. Michael and Claire moved in 6 months ago, after Michael lost his job. I didn't ask too many questions. He said it was temporary, and I believed him. Claire smiled at me and thanked me for letting them stay until they got back on their feet. I gave them the upstairs guest room, cooked for them, and even gave up part of my living room so Claire could work from home. I thought I was helping my son, but now I understood. This wasn't about hard times. This wasn't about family helping family. This was about control, and they were planning to sell my house right from under me while laughing behind my back. I walked over to the kitchen drawer and pulled out the folder where I kept important papers. I found the deed to the house. My name was still on it. I hadn't signed anything, not knowingly, but Claire worked in real estate, and that meant she had access to all sorts of legal templates, forms, and tricks. A month ago, she'd handed me a thick packet to sign, said it was for insurance updates. She'd stood right in front of me with that fake smile and told me it was just routine. I'd signed it. I didn't even read it. I sat down at the table and opened my laptop. I searched the address. To my horror, it was listed online. My house was on the market, a real listing. Pictures of my living room, my kitchen, even my bedroom, taken without my knowledge, were up for the world to see. I clicked through the gallery in disbelief. Claire must have hired a photographer while I was at my doctor's appointment 2 weeks ago. There was a listing price, a description that said great for investors, and a note. Owner moving into assisted living. Assisted living? I stood up, my heart pounding. They'd already written me out of my own life. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, lights off, thinking. Every little moment from the past few months now made sense. Claire asking where I kept my will. Michael suggesting we streamline my accounts. Claire offering to handle the mail so I could relax. They'd been planning this. In the morning, I called Robert Hines, the lawyer who helped me and my husband buy the house 37 years ago. He hadn't heard from me in over a decade. But he remembered me immediately. I told him I needed to see him. He didn't ask questions. At 11 a.m., I walked into his office with the packet Claire gave me. I placed it on his desk. "I need to know what I signed." Robert looked through the pages slowly. His face changed, his jaw tensed. He pulled out his reading glasses and went back through the packet again. "Mary," he said carefully, "this is a transfer of ownership. You've signed over the property." I blinked. "What?" He pointed to a section. "This was notarized. It looks legitimate. It names Claire as a trustee of a revocable trust, but..." He flipped to the back. "Here's the issue. Your signature is on this." "Yes, but there are no initials on the amendments, and the notary is questionable. I can challenge this." I stared at the pages. My hands were shaking. Claire had tricked me. She said it was insurance paperwork, I said quietly. He looked at me for a long moment. We'll fix this, he said. Do you want to move fast? Yes. I spent the rest of the day gathering documents, checking my bank records, and preparing to act. I didn't tell Michael or Claire. I kept everything quiet. That night, Claire brought home takeout. She smiled like nothing had happened. Thought you might be too tired to cook, she said. I nodded. Thanks, dear. She had no idea. The next morning, I met Robert again. We filed a legal revocation of the trust. We initiated a fraud investigation. We placed a legal hold on the house. No sale could go through without my direct consent. And then, just to be sure, I transferred the deed to a living trust in my own name with clear instructions. Upon my death, the house would pass to my granddaughter, Emily. She's 17, lives with her mom in Ohio, and has never asked me for a dime. Claire was still laughing when I took back what was mine. Claire had no idea what I had done. For the next few days, she kept smiling, talking to me like nothing had changed. She even brought me tea one afternoon, all cheerful and polite. I took it, said thank you, and nodded while she went on about how the housing market was really heating up this summer. She was laying it on thick, too thick. I pretended to be tired, distracted, and forgetful, just like they expected me to be. Meanwhile, Robert and I were working. Quietly, carefully. He contacted the listing company and sent them a cease and desist. We sent a formal revocation of the fraudulent trust to the county clerk. Everything Claire had set up was falling apart. She just didn't know it yet. On Thursday, I received a notice of cancellation from the real estate platform. The listing was removed, but the photos were still cached. I clicked through them one last time, feeling a mix of disgust and sadness. I remembered the day we moved into this house. Michael had just turned 7. He helped carry boxes, dragging them across the floor with both hands. His father, George, had taken him for ice cream afterward while I set up the kitchen. We were happy. This house was filled with those memories. And now my son was trying to steal it. On Friday morning, Robert called. It's done, he said. The new trust is active. Claire can't touch the house anymore. And the notary she used? I had someone look him up. He's a friend of hers. We're opening a fraud complaint. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Good. That evening, Claire brought home 2 bottles of wine. For a little celebration, she said. Michael was already in the living room, half asleep on the couch. He barely glanced up when she said it. I joined them for a few minutes. Claire poured me a glass and sat down across from me. We got an offer, she said, smiling. My heart pounded, but I didn't let it show. An offer? I asked, feigning confusion. On the house, she said, like I was hard of hearing. A cash buyer. They want to close fast. I took a sip of the wine. I thought you said the paperwork wasn't ready yet. She blinked. Oh, it's all taken care of. Just a few last steps. I nodded slowly. Well, that's exciting. She smiled, pleased. She thought I was falling for it. The next morning, she left early. Said she was meeting with the buyer's agent. I waited until the front door closed before I called Robert. Time to shut it all down, I told him. He'd already filed the formal complaint with the state board. He also had a contact in the real estate office Claire worked for. By noon, she would be suspended pending investigation. I spent the rest of the morning going through drawers. I gathered up every piece of paperwork Claire had helped me with since she moved in. I laid them out on the dining table in a neat row, a printed email about refinancing, a copy of a power of attorney I didn't remember signing, bank transfer forms with my name at the bottom. All of it was going to Robert. At noon, Claire came home, flustered and pacing. She didn't greet me. She went straight upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and stayed there for over an hour. Michael came down later, looking tired and irritated. Did you say something to Claire? He asked. I looked up from my crossword. No. He stood there watching me. She got a call from work. Something about the listing being pulled. They're looking into her license. I shrugged. That sounds serious. He frowned. She thinks someone's trying to ruin her career. I folded the newspaper slowly. Well, if she did everything by the book, she'll be fine. He didn't say anything, just looked at me for a long second, then walked out to the porch. That night, the air in the house was heavy. Claire didn't come down for dinner. Michael reheated leftovers and barely spoke. I didn't press anything. The next day, things got worse. I was in the kitchen when I heard her voice behind me. "What did you do?" Claire asked. I turned around. She was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Excuse me? You know what I'm talking about," she snapped. "The listing, the trust, the lawyer." I looked her in the eye. "I undid what you tried to do behind my back," she scoffed. "You don't understand how any of this works. You're just old," I interrupted. She stopped. "I may be old, Claire, but I've been around long enough to know what betrayal looks like. And I've raised Michael long enough to know when he's being used." She flinched, just a little. "You can't prove anything," she said. "I don't need to prove it to you. I already proved it to the county clerk, and to your real estate board." Her eyes widened. "You filed a complaint?" "I protected what's mine," I said. "You and Michael have until the end of the month to find another place to live." "You're kicking us out?" she hissed. I didn't raise my voice. "You tried to sell my house without my knowledge. You lied to me. You forged documents. You laughed about me behind my back. Yes, Claire, I'm asking you to leave." Michael came into the room mid-sentence. "What's going on?" Claire turned to him. "She's throwing us out," she said. He looked at me, confused. "Mom?" "You knew," I said. "You knew what she was doing. Maybe you didn't lead it, but you let it happen." He rubbed his face. "You don't understand. We were desperate. You thought you could take the house without me noticing. You thought I was too old to see it coming." He looked away. "I didn't want it to be like this. But it is." The rest of the day passed in silence. They didn't speak to me, and I didn't speak to them. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. On Monday, Robert called. "The fraud investigation is officially open. The listing company confirmed the documents were misrepresented. The notary admitted to signing without you present. Claire's license is under review. She could lose it permanently." I thanked him and hung up. By Friday, Claire and Michael started packing. They didn't say much. She passed me in the hallway once, said nothing, just glared. I didn't respond. I had nothing left to say. On Sunday, I watched through the window as they loaded boxes into the trunk. Claire slammed the car door. Michael looked back at the house once. Then they drove away. For the first time in months, the house was quiet, and finally, I could breathe. The morning after Michael and Claire left, I woke up before sunrise. The house was still, like it used to be before they moved in, before the whispers, the fake kindness, the lies. I got out of bed slowly, pulled the curtains open, and stood there for a moment watching the driveway, empty. For the first time in 6 months, I could see the full stretch of pavement without Michael's old car parked at an angle, or Claire's SUV blocking the mailbox. I boiled water for tea, real tea, not the kind Claire liked to dump artificial sweetener into. I sat at the kitchen table with my mug and just sat. No conversation, no eavesdropping, no pretending. The silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like mine. A few hours later, I went through the house. I didn't plan to clean, but I ended up doing it anyway. Their bedroom still smelled faintly like Claire's perfume. Sharp, floral, too heavy. The closet had been emptied out, except for one pair of Michael's socks. I didn't touch it, just closed the door. The guest bathroom had hair in the sink, makeup stains on the counter, and an empty shampoo bottle sitting on the edge of the tub. I cleaned everything, top to bottom, took my time. I opened windows, aired out the rooms. I even dusted the baseboards. There was something about reclaiming those spaces that made me feel steady again, like I was slowly taking back parts of myself they had been living in. In the evening, I sat on the porch with a blanket and a glass of water. The sun was low, and the neighborhood was quiet. For a long time, I thought about calling Michael, just to hear his voice, just to ask him why. But I didn't, because deep down, I already knew. They thought I was easy to manipulate. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They mistook my kindness for weakness. The following week, I spoke to Robert again. He was wrapping up the final parts of the legal process. "The county clerk's office sent confirmation this morning," he told me. "Your living trust is recorded. Claire's trust was voided. The house is yours, in writing and in fact." "Thank you," I said. "You did the hard part, Mary." After I hung up, I printed the paperwork and placed it in the fireproof lockbox I kept under my bed. Then I called Emily. Emily is my granddaughter, Michael's niece, my late son Daniel's daughter. She lives with her mom, Allison, in Ohio. We don't see each other much, but we talk every other Sunday, and she never forgets to call me on my birthday. She's 17 now, smart, and quieter than most girls her age. She picked up on the second ring. Grandma? Hi, sweetheart. Hi. Is everything okay? I smiled at the concern in her voice. I just wanted to let you know something. I changed the trust for the house. It's in your name now, for when the time comes. You don't need to do anything. Just know it's yours someday. There was a pause. Wait, really? Yes. You're serious? I am. Why? I hesitated. Because you're the only person in this family who's never asked me for anything. You just love me. That's enough. She was quiet for a moment. Then I heard her sniffle. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Emily. Just promise me you'll take care of it when the time comes. That's all I want. I promise, she said. And I believed her. That night, I slept better than I had in months. 3 days later, Michael called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second, but the third time I picked up. Mom. His voice was calm, careful. Yes. I just wanted to talk, just for a few minutes. I didn't respond right away. I know what we did was wrong, he said. Claire, I should have stopped it. I should have never let it get that far. You didn't just let it get that far, I said. You helped her. You watched me sign documents you knew I didn't understand. You let her take pictures of my home without telling me. You let her list my house for sale and smiled at me like nothing was happening. I know. His voice cracked a little. I was scared. We were broke. I didn't know what to do. You knew not to steal from your mother. He was silent. I'm not calling to ask for money, he said. I miss you. I closed my eyes. You didn't think about missing me when you were planning to ship me off to assisted living. He let out a breath. Claire said that. You didn't stop her either. There was a long pause. I understand if you don't want to see me again, he finally said. I get it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I'm not ready, I told him. I need space. Okay. Another pause. Then he added quietly, I love you, Mom. I know, I said, but I need more than that now. I ended the call. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Claire's handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the table for a full day, just staring at it. Finally, I tore it open. It was short. Mary, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I lost my job. My license is suspended. Michael is staying with a friend, and I'm back with my mother. You don't need to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I regret what I did. I thought I was being smart. I wasn't. Claire. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with the documents. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel angry either. Just tired. Some people learn their lesson too late. Some only learn when they lose everything. I spent the rest of the day in the garden. I pulled weeds, trimmed bushes, and watered the tomatoes. That night, I made chicken soup from scratch and froze the leftovers. The next morning, I mailed a small package to Emily. Inside was a house key and a short note. For whenever you visit, you always have a place here. Then I sat in my chair by the window and watched the sun come up. No one called. No one stopped by. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't mind. 2 weeks passed. The house remained quiet, and I started to fall into a new rhythm. I cooked simple meals, went to the store once a week, and read more than I had in years. The tension that had lived in my shoulders for so long began to fade, little by little. It wasn't peace yet, but it was close. Then, on a Tuesday morning, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked slowly to the front door. Through the peephole, I saw Michael standing on the porch, alone. I opened the door but didn't step aside to let him in. Hi, he said. Michael. He looked thinner than I remembered. His clothes were clean, but his shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes looked tired. Can I come in for a minute? He asked. I stood still for a few seconds, then nodded and opened the door wider. He stepped inside slowly, like someone walking into a place they didn't quite recognize. I just wanted to see you, he said. I'm not here to ask for anything. I sat down in my chair and waited. He stayed standing, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Claire's gone back to her mother's. She's trying to appeal the board's decision. I don't think she'll win. I nodded. I'm sleeping on my friend Dave's couch. I've been looking for work, but it's hard right now. Still, I didn't speak. He finally sat down on the edge of the couch, leaned forward, and rested his elbows on his knees. I know you don't want to hear any of this, he said. I just didn't know where else to go. I looked at him carefully. I told you I needed space, I said. I know. And I respected that. But… He stopped, sighed, and rubbed his forehead. I've had time to think. About everything. What we did. What we were trying to do. And it's disgusting. I see it now. You see it because you're uncomfortable, I replied. Not because you regret it. He looked up quickly. That's not fair. No? I cut him off. Where was that regret when you stood in the hallway and watched Claire hand me papers to sign, knowing full well what they were? Where was it when I asked you about the listing and you smiled and told me not to worry? He lowered his gaze. You let her do it. Michael, you didn't just stand by. You participated. You let her mock me. You let her steal from me. And you acted like I should be thankful. I was weak, he muttered. I didn't know how to stop her without ruining everything. You didn't want to ruin your comfort, I said. That's different. There was a long silence. Neither of us moved. The clock ticked loudly from the wall. Finally, he stood. I won't bother you again. I wanted you to see my face when I said I was sorry. Not through a phone call, not in a letter, just me, standing here, telling you I was wrong. I nodded, but I didn't offer any warmth. Didn't. He walked to the door and hesitated. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. But I do love you. I believe that, I replied. But love doesn't mean much without respect. He swallowed hard, then opened the door and left. I stood at the window and watched him walk down the street. He didn't look back. That night, I called Emily. She answered quickly, cheerful as always. Hey, Grandma. Hi, sweetie. I got your key, she said. Thank you. That was so sweet. Did your mom say anything? She was surprised, but happy. She said we might come visit this summer. I'd like that. She talked about school, about a research paper she was proud of, and about a boy she didn't like who kept trying to copy her homework. I listened and smiled. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a connection that hadn't been poisoned by guilt or manipulation. When we hung up, I sat with the phone in my lap and thought about Michael. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. What I felt was something close to grief, but not for him, for what we used to be. The next morning, I went through the mailbox and found an envelope from the county assessor's office. It was confirmation that the house title was fully secure in the new trust. Emily's name was officially on it, as successor. The documents were final. I filed the letter in my box, along with everything else. The rest of the week passed without incident. I didn't hear from Claire. I didn't hear from Michael. The phone stayed quiet. I cooked, cleaned, watched the news, and took short walks when the weather allowed. On Sunday, I went to church for the first time in months. A few old neighbors greeted me with small talk and polite smiles. One of them, Margaret, said she'd heard Michael and Claire had moved out. I nodded. Just taking care of a few things, I told her. Margaret didn't push. She never did. When I got home, I found a note taped to my door. My heart skipped a beat before I even read it. I thought it might be from Michael again, or Claire, but it was from someone else. It was from Allison, Emily's mom. Mary, I just wanted to say thank you. Not just for thinking of Emily, but for standing up for yourself. I know it's been hard. Daniel would have been proud of you. We're planning to come out for a weekend in June, if that's okay. Emily's excited. Allison, I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in the kitchen drawer. The next day, I picked up the phone and scheduled a carpet cleaning. I decided to fix the front steps, repaint the porch, and finally replace the broken ceiling fan in the dining room. It wasn't just about the repairs. It was about putting the house back in order on my terms. No one would live here again unless they respected what this house stood for. This wasn't just wood and paint and windows. This was my life, my work, my choices. They had tried to take it. They failed. And I was still here. The first weekend of June came faster than I expected. I had circled the date on the calendar when Allison confirmed she and Emily would be arriving on Friday afternoon. I didn't make a big fuss out of it. I didn't decorate or cook anything extravagant. But I cleaned every room and made sure the guest beds had fresh sheets. I even bought Emily's favorite cereal and stocked the fridge with things they might need. It had been almost 2 years since I last saw them in person. Most of our relationship had become phone calls, messages, and the occasional holiday video chat. But seeing Allison's handwriting on the note she left on my door a few weeks earlier had stirred something in me, like a reminder that not every part of my family was broken. Friday came. Around 3 p.m., I saw a silver SUV pull into the driveway. I stepped out onto the porch just as Allison was turning off the engine. Emily hopped out of the passenger seat first, taller than I remembered, with a bag slung over one shoulder and a huge grin on her face. "Grandma!" I smiled and opened my arms. She rushed up the steps and hugged me tight. "You're taller," I said. "You say that every time," she laughed. Allison came around the front of the car and smiled. She looked tired, like most single mothers do, but her eyes were warm. "Hi, Mary." "Hi, Allison. I'm glad you made it." They brought in their bags, and I gave them the bigger guest room, the one that had belonged to Michael and Claire. It felt good to open that space to someone who actually appreciated it. We sat in the kitchen for a while, catching up over coffee and lemonade. Emily told me about her classes, how she was thinking about studying architecture, and that she'd started learning how to drive. Allison talked about work, nothing dramatic, just the usual struggles of trying to keep up with bills and schedules. It was a normal conversation, nothing fake, nothing heavy, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of something real again. Later that evening, we ate dinner at the table. I made chicken casserole and green beans. Emily went back for seconds, which made me happy. After the dishes were done, we sat outside on the porch, talking about nothing important, just letting the time pass. Emily eventually got up to explore the house. "Can I go look in the attic?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "Just be careful on the stairs." She ran off, and I stayed outside with Allison. "She's grown up," I said after a while. "She has," Allison replied. "You gave her something that meant a lot. She's family," I said. Allison was quiet for a second. "She told me what you did, about the trust." I nodded. "She's a good girl. She deserves something stable." Allison looked at me and leaned back in her chair. "You didn't have to, but I'm grateful." I shook my head. "It's not about having to. It's about making sure the right people are remembered." We didn't say much else after that. The sun went down. The porch light clicked on automatically. We just sat there. The next morning, I woke up early and started making pancakes. Emily came into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "I found all the photo albums upstairs," she said, sitting at the table. "Oh?" I asked. She nodded. "I went through them all. There's one with pictures of Dad when he was young. I'd never seen some of those." I smiled. He was always the quiet one. Always had his head in a book. She got up and pulled out the album, flipping it open to a picture of Daniel on his old bike in the front yard. Emily stared at it for a moment. "He looks like me," she said. "Yes, he does." After breakfast, we worked in the garden. I showed her where the tomatoes were, how I liked to trim the roses, and which plants the squirrels kept trying to dig up. She listened, asked questions, and even took notes on her phone. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't emotional, it was just connection, and it felt good. That afternoon, I showed them the house paperwork, not the legal documents, but the history. The original mortgage papers, receipts from when we added the porch, blueprints George and I once had drawn when we thought about expanding the kitchen. Emily read everything with quiet interest. "This is more than just a house," she said. "Yes," I replied. "It always was." Sunday came too soon. They packed up their things after lunch, and I helped them carry the bags out to the car. Emily hugged me tight before getting in. "Thank you for everything," she said. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Allison hugged me too. "Let's not wait 2 years again," she said. "We won't." As they pulled away, I waved until I couldn't see the car anymore. I went back into the house. It was quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet, not the lonely kind. I sat down at the table and opened the photo album Emily had left out. I flipped through it slowly, page by page. Daniel's birthday party, Michael holding a baseball, Claire in the background of a family barbecue, George standing proudly on the porch with a fresh coat of paint behind him. I didn't skip the pictures of Michael and Claire. I didn't tear them out or hide them. I just looked at them and kept turning the pages. The past was part of the story, but it didn't get to be the whole story. The phone rang once that night. I didn't answer. It stopped after 3 rings. No voicemail. I didn't check the number. Instead, I turned off the light, walked upstairs, and closed my bedroom door behind me. The days after Allison and Emily left were quiet again, but the house didn't feel the same. It felt lived in. Not by Claire and Michael, not by tension or secrecy, but by something more honest. I could still hear Emily's footsteps upstairs when I passed by the guest room. Her cereal box was still in the pantry, and a sweater she forgot was folded neatly over the back of a kitchen chair. I didn't rush to move anything. I left it like that for a while. On Thursday, I got a letter in the mail. It was addressed to me in Michael's handwriting. No return address, just my name and the street number written a little too neatly, like he'd spent time trying to make it look formal. I sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Mom, I've been thinking about everything. I've replayed it all over and over in my head. I can't undo what I let happen, but I'm trying to make it right in my own way. I started working again. It's nothing big, just some maintenance work at a warehouse, but it's something. I'm renting a small room. I don't have much, and that's okay. I don't deserve much after what I did. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I'm writing to tell you I understand. I understand why you changed the locks. I understand why you didn't answer when I called last week. I understand why you let me walk out of your house without asking me to come back. I don't expect to be welcome again, but I want you to know I'm trying to live differently now. I don't know what kind of son I'll be from here on, but I'm not going to pretend things didn't happen. I hope someday we'll talk again. If not, I'll still carry you with me. Michael. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in the same drawer where I had kept Claire's letter. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat with it for a while. The following week, I called Robert one last time. We finalized the tax paperwork for the trust. Everything was now legally aligned with what I'd already decided months before. Emily's name as beneficiary. All restrictions in place to protect the property. No changes possible without my approval. The house was safe, and so was I. I decided to finally clean out the attic, not just dust and sweep, but really go through things. There were boxes up there that hadn't been opened in decades, old coats, George's fishing gear, Michael and Daniel's school projects. I found a drawing Daniel made in 2nd grade of our house with stick figures out front. Him, Michael, George, and me. He drew me taller than everyone else. I sat on a crate and stared at that drawing for a long time. It wasn't grief anymore. It was something closer to closure. In July, I received a text from Allison. Emily wants to come visit for a week before school starts. Is that okay? I replied immediately. Of course it is. She always has a place here. She arrived a few days later with a suitcase and a big hug. She spent mornings helping me in the garden, afternoons reading on the porch, and evenings asking questions about her dad. One night, she sat across from me with her knees pulled to her chest and asked, "Do you think Dad would have been proud of me?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. She nodded like she needed to hear it out loud. I miss him sometimes, even though I don't remember much. You carry parts of him, Emily. They didn't go away. She stayed quiet for a while, then smiled a little and said, "Thanks for letting me be here." "You don't have to thank me," I said. "This house is as much yours now as it is mine." She didn't respond, just leaned her head on my shoulder and sat with me until it got dark. When she left, I walked her out to the car. Allison hugged me and promised to call more often. Emily waved from the window until they turned the corner. The house was quiet again, but now it was a different kind of quiet, one I wasn't afraid of anymore. Later that evening, I heard the mail slot click. I went to the door and saw another envelope on the floor. I recognized the writing before I even picked it up. Claire. No return address? No stamp. She must have dropped it off herself. I opened it slowly. "Mary, I lost my license permanently. I'm working part-time at a small shop, trying to keep my head above water. I know I don't deserve your time. I want you to know I've apologized to Michael. We're not together anymore." We haven't spoken since I left. I ruined my reputation, my career, and nearly my marriage. I ruined my own life more than anyone else's. But that doesn't mean I didn't hurt you deeply, and I'm sorry. I won't contact you again. I just wanted to say this before walking away completely. Claire. I folded the letter and placed it in the same drawer as the others. Then I locked the drawer. I didn't need to open it again. Summer turned into fall. I started baking more, invited a few neighbors over for coffee, and even joined a small book club at the library. I didn't talk much about what had happened, not because I was ashamed, but because it didn't define me. One morning, while trimming the hedges, I saw the mail truck stop. The carrier handed me a small envelope. Inside was a card. Simple, white, no message. Just a pressed flower taped inside and a single line, handwritten. Thank you for not giving up on what mattered. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a name. I placed it on my nightstand, beside a small picture of Daniel and Emily from when she was just 4 years old. I didn't need more. The house was still standing. The garden was still growing. And I had learned exactly who I could count on. They thought I wouldn't notice what they were doing, but I noticed everything. And in the end, I stayed. They didn't.